What's up, guys and gals? Welcome to Weekly Indie Newcomer, my Friday series where we talk about an indie game or an otherwise interesting game that popped into my inbox over the course of the week. This week, we're going to be taking a look at the Trese Brothers Heroes of Steel Tactics RPG. Now, the first thing you want to take note of is you can get this game for either the Droid or you can get it on Steam for the PC, but there is a different pricing scheme for both. The one on the Droid is actually a lot cheaper. It's like $2.99 or something like that, but you don't get any of the extra characters or any of the DLC or anything like that along with the game. If you buy the game on Steam, it's basically like a season pass. It costs $11.99. The game isn't fully developed yet, but you get all of the DLCs for free, you get all of the characters for free, and everything that comes from here on out for free once you've paid for the game one time. Now, what is Heroes of Steel Tactics RPG? It's a creation of the Trese Brothers, who make droid games that tend to be a little bit old school in the respect to their gameplay mechanics and the things that they represent. So a lot of the games that they make are kind of like spacefaring freelancer type stuff, but this one is a top-down action RPG which gives you control of a small squad and makes you work your way through a story-based campaign in which you'll cross the breadth of an entire continent, and there's all kinds of storyline goodies. Right now the first chapter is in the game, and I know that the second chapter is releasing pretty soon. In fact, it may have come out already. I'm not sure. I'll have to check the patch notes on that, but I'm pretty sure the second one is coming out fairly soon. The developers have done a pretty good job at dropping characters into the game reasonably frequently, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and play the game. And basically the way I'm going to split this up is the first little part, we're going to talk about how you create a party, and then the second part is me going to be loading my save game, because the thing is, if we start from the beginning in this game and we treat it like a first impressions video, we will never get to the first combat before the storyline gets done. There's a ton of dialogue at the beginning, and so essentially I'm forced to kind of cut this in half. So we'll do the character creation, but then we're going to load my other game, and from there we'll just play the game for a little while. I don't have a ton of experience with this game, so I don't feel comfortable doing a pros and cons section. I don't think that would be fair to the development, I guess. And so we're going to treat this like a first impressions video for the remainder. So let's go ahead and create the party. So when you start out, you get to go to play a new game, and you get to take a pick. So this is represented a little strangely right here, but essentially what it's saying is that there are two different choices for each of these party slots. And so your first party slot is a warrior archetype. You can choose the Outlander, which is basically like a berserker. He can use heavy armor, he can do all kinds of cool stuff with two-handed weapons and so forth. Or you can pick the duelist, who is a dual-wielding warrior who can't use heavy armor. He uses lighter armor, but he does have the ability to negate damage totally by parrying using an ability that he has. And so both are kind of your tanky options. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. They both have completely different distinct abilities and skill sets though, so you'll probably want to pick the one that brings you the most joy. In the next slot, let's go back here. We have ourselves our wizard choices. You can go with the sorcerer, or you can go with the wizard. The wizard is a fire and ash mage, and so most of the stuff he has is going to be like choking enemies, obscuring their vision, hitting them with fireballs, exploding the ground, all that good kind of pyrotechnical type stuff. He's also got a red beard to go with all the red flames, so if that's what you're into, that's what he's got. This sorcerer over here is like an ice mage, I guess. Let me see. There we go. And so Vincent the Sorcerer, he goes to your mage slot, and he has the power of lightning and ice. And so I haven't really played with this character much. The differences that I would tell you are more than likely going to be that he's a little bit lesser of a range, it looks like, and so he's kind of like a magical skirmisher, and it says that he can also use melee abilities. I don't know, I haven't made a party with him yet. My current parties, the things that I've played with is I fiddled around with both the warriors, I fiddled around with this mage, I fiddled around with the healers and the archer. So anyways, if you wanted like a battle mage type deal that uses lightning and ice, this is your guy. If you wanted to use a fire mage, who is very much kind of the old traditional archetype, shooting spells and eye lasers everywhere from a long distance, this is going to be your guy. The next choice is your priest slot or your healer slot. You can either go with the cleric, which is more spells, less melee, or you can go with the paladin, which is more melee, less spells, but they both have divine spells that heal, bless, debuff the enemy, and things like that. I've taken the paladin because I love the paladin. I take paladins in everything. They're the coolest class ever. And so finally we get to choose between our sneak classes, which you've got a rogue and you've got a thief. The thief obviously focuses on bows, doesn't do a whole lot of melee, whereas the rogue is going to have like the same support abilities, but she's going to fight up close and personal with swords. And so with that out of the way, those are your basic options right now. The developers have talked about adding new classes to the game, so I'm willing to bet that there will probably be about 4 choices or so by the time the game finishes development, so you'll have all kinds of things to try out, lots of replayability, lots of abilities to fiddle around with. By my count, most of the classes seem to have about 10 abilities, give or take a few, and so you unlock those as you level up. You start with 4 at the beginning, and you just slowly unlock them as you play the game. If I had to compare this game to anything, I would say that it's a lot like Avernum or Avedon, in that it's low budget. You can tell from the art, it's very clearly like a low budget game, but at the same time, once you're actually in the game, you aren't going to be looking at portraits and things like this anymore, and the way that the game presents it in reality is actually quite nice and minimalist, and I do like how the actual game plays once you get out all of these menus. But what I will say is that the game doesn't necessarily strike you with the best impression with the art that it has right now, but that's all subjective. Some people may love the art, so I'll leave that open to interpretation. I'm going to take a quick break right here. We're going to pop into the gameplay. Okay, and so here we are in game, and this is basically the way the game is going to present itself for the entirety of your gameplay. So once you get past those initial menus, which I'll admit are very, very minimalist, you get to this part of the game, which I love the way this is presented. It looks like a board game to me. It kind of reminds me of those old board games we used to have, where you would snap the pieces together like puzzle pieces, almost something like, Descent, Journeys in the Deep, where you like snap the pieces together and there's little barrels and things all over it. I like the way that this looks. I think you can turn on a grid mode. Can you turn on a grid mode? No, it doesn't look like there's a grid mode here. We can cycle through. So let's talk about the UI first. Clicking up here is going to bring up your options menu. Over here on the right is going to be the abilities that you currently have in your quick slots for the characters in your party. By pressing 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can swap to the different members of your party. You'll see that they all have their own distinct abilities right now. Everything from a basic attack on up to a charge attack, which uses up a little bit of their mana, uses up a little bit of their SP, I'm sorry, their AP. The SP is the blue bar. Uses up their AP. The game does use an AP-based system, which I really do prefer. I really don't like games, as a personal preference, just me, I don't like games that have the move and shoot or shoot and do nothing mechanic. I really dislike that mechanic, and so I like the fact that the developers went with AP so that you can sort of ration yourself out. Moving one square costs 1 AP. You are allowed to move in diagonals if you wanted to, and it evens that out, makes it fair by allowing the bad guys to move diagonals for 1 AP as well. Right now you'll see that we're engaged fighting some spiders. This was the last place where it saved my game, so I'm not even really sure, but we can talk about combat for a little bit. So let's start out with our duelist. Our duelist has 4 abilities available right now, although 3 technically because I don't have the right weapons equipped. Let's go ahead and take a look. Can I do that right now? Oh, I can do it in combat. So if you click on their portrait, you can see that everybody has their own stats. They have their own skill points, which each affect the potency of the different abilities that they're using, and I'll show you that in just a second. There's a list of the spell effects that are actively on them. There's a list of the talents that they've purchased. Here's all the abilities you can get for this character over the course of the game. And then you have this for every single character, so there it is right there. Finally, if you wanted to look at their equipment, there is equipment in this game, so if you're kind of a gearhead like I am, all of this stuff is just things that you can equip on your characters. And so you've got extra slots that haven't been filled in yet, because arguably we're sort of at the beginning of the game right now. My party's not looking so great, we're sort of beat up, so I think first thing I want to do is let's jump back into the combat here. I'm going to take my healer and I'm going to plop her right here. And who else is wounded? Is everybody else wounded at all? Nobody else is even wounded. Let's see what we can do with our first turn before I decide if I want to heal or not. These spiders do hit really hard, and so the first ability I'm going to use is called a thrust, I think is what it's called, a lunge. It's an empowered melee attack that uses 2 AP and 2 spirit per weapon. And so if he's dual wielding, you have to realize this is going to be double the cost, so watch that out. There's going to be 3 accuracy and plus 4 damage for the attack because it's using SP. And then if you wanted to maximize your stats, so if you're kind of a min-maxing person, down here you can see the calculation that it's making with the stats in question. So you need weapon, blades, and dexterity to stack up the damage for this whole thing to determine your accuracy. So there it is right there. If you're one of those people who likes to min and max, this is where you look to figure out where you want to increase your stats in order to make yourself better for using specific abilities. I'm actually just going to have him use normal attacks now, I think. So we'll go ahead and stab the spiders a few times, because if not stabbing, what are spiders good for? It actually looks like we may be able to make it out of this combat fairly easily. We've also got our wizard, who's got 4 abilities. He's got a fireball that does damage and costs SP. He's got a staff attack, which is his default melee attack. It doesn't cost you SP, but it does cost you AP. He's got a shield that he can put up around party members in an AoE, which increases their armor and also increases their elemental resistances. And then he's got an ash cloud, which he can AoE cast on the enemy to lower their defenses and their parry scores and all of that fun stuff. And this is going to be really useful when you go up against heavily armored enemies that are really kind of putting you at risk of getting your ass kicked. Those guys that are wearing those steel-toed boots that seem to just have a homing beacon on your collective tailbones. And so her right here, she's got a empowered shot, just like he has an empowered stab, does the exact same thing. She's got a scouting vision, which allows her to kind of look through walls and things like that and see where things are. It's kind of a cool ability, and it's nice for scouting. She's got open locks. She's got her default bow attack. She's got disarm traps, and she's got her default melee attack. And so the addition of this ability right here, and the addition of, well, she's got more abilities than everybody else, but she's a rogue. That's what rogues do. They bring all kinds of utility and abilities to decrease the futility, if I wanted to keep on rhyming. But I think I'll get back to the civility and continue the episode. Let's shoot some fireballs at the spider. How about that? That sounds right about. I love the graphic for that. There is blood in this game, and if you are a parent or somebody that has a problem with blood and gore, well, you can disable it through the front menu. On the first screen where I was talking about the characters, there's a button at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen that has like a little blood splatter. You click on that and you can turn off the blood. So if you're worried about your kids or whatever being exposed to violence and gore, well, there it is. You can go ahead and turn that off. I only bring it up because I know it is a big deal to some people that have kids. And so, in passing, I figured I'd give it a mention because I think that's something that people don't necessarily bring up in first impressions very frequently. Now, I think we might be done with combat here. Let's wait it out and see if any other spiders show up. Oh, yeah, there are more. Oh, no! There's quite a few more spiders. Ooh, okay, so I tried to end the combat, and it appears as though that was a terrible, terrible decision. Ooh. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I came in with, like, no HP, so this is... Oh, they're actually just gonna have me refight it. Okay, whatever. That's fine. I should have done my heals. I didn't realize there was more spiders. I thought we only had, like, the one. So let's go ahead and we'll murder some stuff here. It's only gonna take me, like, 4 seconds to catch back up. Murdering these spiders, not a big deal to me. My duelist is actually pretty good at murdering and slaughtering. I don't have a whole lot of utility items right now, though, so... We probably want to get rid of these spiders as rapidly as we can. So those spiders are down. What I'm going to do is I'll put my healer right here. And then we'll go over to here. That was a noob move on my part, but I figured the spiders were all gone, so whatever. We'll have her AoE heal on everybody. And that used up the remainder of her AP. And then I think what I may consider doing is let's scoot everybody back by one. Because the AI tends to tabulate. If you've ever played Final Fantasy Tactics, you'll know that the AI likes to move within 1 square of you or whatever, so they line up, the AI is programmed to line up their AP so that they always get to you on the next turn, and so sometimes you can trick them out a little bit and force them to maybe lose an attack or something by forcing them to move a lot farther. Then again, the enemies do have a lot of AP in this game. One thing you'll find is this game is pretty challenging. The enemies do hit equally as hard as you do, and death is permanent. I mean, once you die, as you saw right there, this game is pretty hardcore in that old school sense where you can't even lose one character. If one character dies, there's no res mechanism, you start the battle over, so you've got to keep everybody alive. Let's go ahead from the back line, and I'm going to start shooting arrows over to here. There's a 9, and an 11, and a 12 to finish off the enemy. I'm going to move my cleric back into here. And actually, I'm not going to use her Empowered Strike because she's running out of mana. I need her to heal people. And so we'll take a couple swings right here. Hopefully that will lower the enemy down to the depths of Spider Hell, which is so much worse than Human Hell. Spider Hell, it's bad. It's really, really bad. They make up for the lack of chains and clanking and misery by the fact that everyone there is just a spider, which makes everyone uncomfortable. I'm going to move my mage up to here, and we'll have him melee. I think my duelist is probably going to do fine in murdering this spider by himself. Yeah, he tends to hit pretty hard. Let's go ahead and bypass a turn. Oh, wow, there is another one. There's 2 more. Okay. Got a pretty serious spider problem here. Ooh, with the double attacks. Triple attacks. Alright, well, it appears as though there are a lot more spiders down here than I thought there were. Let's go ahead, and since he's almost dead, we need to finish this fight off, like, right now. So I'm going to have him just staff attack because he's out of MP anyways. And then we'll come back in with a bow strike here. Luckily, spiders seem to be quite allergic to arrows, and so we'll make that happen. And then finally what I want to do is I'll move her to right there, and we'll AoE heal this group. And I am pretty much out of support items at this point. I'm a little bit into the game. I'd say I'm about an hour and a half in. The game has a lot of combat, so if you're the kind of person that doesn't like slog and grind, the game does keep it interesting. In a lot of ways, it's like R-Clash Legacy, in that the fights are consistently challenging, and you're never quite sure what to expect. Every single battle can turn you out to give you kind of an idea of how the whole thing goes. As you saw right there, things quickly escalate. And so now that I've got everybody back up to maybe full health, let's see if I've got any spirit potions I can give to her. I do. Let's give her a spirit infusion real fast. Actually, we've got a suspension, too, right there, which will give everybody in our party SP. Let's do that. That seems to be a pretty good call, considering just about everybody is out. Now, we can move characters around just by left-clicking, now that we're out of the battle. You left-click to move like this. In battle, you'll double-click, if I can get the words out of my mouth right now. You'll double-click when you're in combat, because There's an initial click, it'll put a circle right there, and then you confirm it. If you don't confirm it, it'll cancel itself out pretty rapidly. And if you don't want to move everybody around one by one, which would be cumbersome, you can press the G key, and it'll collapse everybody onto your main character right here. You can swap characters. If you wanted to use their abilities, you can use them outside of combat. So let's say that I wanted to heal somebody right now, I could just go to her, and it would AoE the entire party as though they were on top of that spot together. We just killed a lot of spiders, so yeah, there's treasure right there. Let's go ahead and open up our treasure chest. Spider treasures! Surprisingly, a lack of dead cocooned bugs in the spider treasure. That's good, though. I'm glad that these spiders are greedy and have a love for the gold pieces, because we can put those to use later on. We'll go ahead and pick up all those useful items, and then we'll continue down to the bottom of the screen. I've already cleared out all this area up here. I don't think there's a... Oh, you can zoom out. Okay, so we can either go up here. Now, I know from the storyline, you start out way in the bottom left corner of this, and the storyline is thusly, you're a bunch of heroes around the realm that are around just doing your thing, and you're kidnapped in the dark of night, and you're imprisoned in a barren cellar, and you all realize, being exceptional together, like the superheroes that you are, that you can break out using your special abilities, because apparently nobody told the Baron or the Jailkeeper that the rogue knows how to pick locks. Who would have thought that a rogue would know how to pick locks? And so after escaping, you've got to figure out the conspiracy as to why you have been captured and why the enemy is now trying to kill you and keep you from escaping the dungeon. There is a lot of dialogue in this game. As I said when I first started out the the Weekly Indie Newcomer episode, as I said when I first started out, the things you're gonna... Ooh, quilted robes and a hunting barb, a one-handed spear. I don't think we have anybody that can use that, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and take everything. There's a lot of storyline in this game. There's a lot of dialogue. Once again, I would draw a correlation to Avedon or Avernum, any of those old Spiderweb. I think Spiderweb is the name of the developer that does those. Anyways, any of those old Spiderweb games that just have a ton of dialogue, lots of talking, lots of storyline, lots of depth, lots of lore. Exact same thing with this game. You will find that if you're really interested in learning about the world here, the characters each have their own unique perspective, and they have no problem kind of telling you about it. I don't think I want to go back that way, because the last time I tried to go through there, they said that the Baron's castle was up there, and the game essentially told me that there was no way I was going to escape from that location. Instead, they told me to go east, so I'm going to click over here, and he'll just auto-path his way on over there. I'm the kind of person that's a completionist, so I like to go everywhere, kill everything, and get all treasure. It has slightly gotten me into trouble, but we did get some better stuff. Let's see if those quilted robes are better for my mage. I guess we'll do that when we... Wait. There's a little alcove right here. Let's go over to here, and we'll open this up. Let's go to our mage, and he has, what, an overcloak? Okay, and what is this right here? He has an initiate's robe, so he can't wear any of this, unfortunately. He's already got better armor than that. I think I picked it up out of a chest earlier on. Let's zoom back in, but not before we put our tank in the front of our line, because when it unpacks your stacks, when you get attacked. So when your pack gets unstacked when you get attacked, the unfortunate thing is you might catch some flack. Ooh, I'm feeling rhymey today, because it actually expands your characters out sort of randomly behind the tank or behind the mage. If you're controlling the mage, it'll actually expand the party out behind him, and you can't walk through your own characters, and so you can end up in nasty situations where your mage is just isolated in the front lines, kind of blocking the way, and you have no way of rearranging your troops. It can get very, very ugly very, very fast, so just make sure your tank is always in the front. Whichever person you want in battle first, make sure he's the guy that's rocking up in the front. It sounds simple, but you know what? I derped my way through the first half of this playthrough, so I feel like I should probably leave nothing to chance at this point. Gambling, not in my favor. What's down here? This is an especially suspicious looking cavern. It looks as though it could carry a mustache quite well without anybody asking or being the wiser. I think we're probably about to get attacked, because he did hear a noise. Let's go ahead and we'll grab this. More initiates robes, but more infusions as well, which is a really, really good thing for us, because he's low. Let's go ahead and we'll stock him back up on MP. Treat potions in this game, think of it like Final Fantasy. Just use potions all the time. They don't even matter. Just use them all the time. You will occasionally get to a rest spot where you can rest and recover and level up. We haven't gotten to one yet, but hopefully we will during the duration of this playthrough. There will be a camp spot that we can kind of hang out at and get all of our lovely vitals back up to the standard level that they should be. Let's see. Anything going to attack me in here? I bet something's going to attack me in here. Let's see. I'm going to skip the text because I don't want to ruin the storyline, and B, we've got to look at gameplay. That's the point of all this. The storyline is nice, but the gameplay is really the focus right now for these first impressions videos. As I said, I'm not going to do a pros and cons because I just don't feel like I've spent a fair enough amount of time with the game to really render my judgment on it, but as of right now, we're being attacked by Ratkin, is what they said. I'm assuming that those are like Skaven or something. Why did you move down there? Don't do that. Okay, so let's fall back. I'm going to put her right there. Put her right there. We have no way of knowing where they're coming from. And so let's just stack up for a minute. And then we'll let them come to us since I accidentally used up some AP right there. Falling back and using our... Okay, so that, yeah, they're basically little Skaven monsters. So he's hiding behind a barrel right there, and they've actually a rat with a larger rat as a pet. That's almost like me having like a dumber human as a pet, wouldn't you think? I mean, I don't know if that's okay. I'm pretty sure that ethically it's not okay to have a pet of your own species. Maybe it's just like a lesser evolved version of itself. Can I shoot you right now? I hope I can. Oh good, the barrels don't provide cover. That makes me happy as a clam. Oh, we can get stats on them too if we double click. That's fun. A bow rat. He has 10 HP, 2 AP, and 3 MP. Or I'm sorry, he has how many? Ooh. She can't take another shot, so what we'll do with him is we're going to throw out a fireball right here. I would love to get him just killed off in the first turn because ranged combatants are a big problem for us. Okay, so he's down. And is that a bow rat right there too? They're all bow rats, so I think... let's break off line of sight, actually. I think that's our better option, although I'm not going to be able to. So, the choice becomes advance or get owned. And that's a pretty long move right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that leaves him with 2 AP. Yeah, let's just do it. We'll advance. We're just going to let it happen. And then he'll stab that rat right there, hopefully making contact for 22 damage. Not bad. Not bad at all, Chief. And then we'll move everybody else in here. She's got 2 left, so let's take a swing at this rat. And hopefully advancing at this rapid pace isn't going to get us in trouble. Let's pass the turn. And we'll allow the enemy to take their go because we're just that sort of courteous host. Hopefully they don't get as many attacks as I think they're going to get. Because the enemies do a lot of damage in this game, like a severe amount of damage. They can hit every bit as hard as you hit, so be careful when you advance. God. So in one turn, we're already down to like no health. Definitely a game for people who enjoy difficulty. Let's go over here, and let's see if we can get this rat out of the way. That thing's actually a lot tankier than I expected it to be. I'm sincerely hoping we can kill this thing before the end of the turn. Okay, well let's just start back with the healing then. We'll go with a pair of heals right there maybe. Let's see what happens when we try and kill this guy off. Okay, so he's down. And we'll advance on the bow rats. Oh, and I just blocked my only entrance. Damn. Okay. So that's going to be us for that turn. Because I wasn't thinking. And so we'll go ahead and end it right there. Hopefully the bow rats don't finish off anybody in my party. They do like to attack. I don't know. It seems kind of random depending on the enemy that we're facing. Some of the enemies really like to focus on the tank. And I've actually noticed a lot of enemies in this game really, really like to attack the healer. Which is probably a smart choice given what I know about, you know, PvP and all that fun stuff. But let's close the gap with these guys and see if maybe we can finish them off in one turn. We did indeed. My duelist is quite the killer. You can spec him to either dual wield or you can spec him to have a sword in one hand and throwing weapons like throwing daggers in his offhand. And it works out pretty well. It allows him to have a little bit of limited ranged capacity just in case you wanted him to. I'm going to move to right. Wait, what? She had 7, didn't she? Oh well, I wasn't paying attention. We'll go ahead and take some shots right here. Leaving our opponent, well, he's going to take the shots. And hopefully we will leave him in a state of inebriation from the... Well, I was going to say, okay. Just want to leave him in a state of shock and awe from the nasty little blast of fire being sent in his direction. Wow, we are just not hitting this thing very well. We're getting really low rolls. And that's out of range, so let's step to right here. And I'm going to use her upgraded bow shot to deal damage. And so is that it? Okay, so that's everybody. Let's go ahead and grab our characters right here. I'm going to recollapse them. I'm going to bring out my paladin, and we're going to stack heal everybody. Just a little bit. Actually, it might be more efficient for him just to use a healing potion. We've only got like 4 of them anyway, so... There we go. That'll get him back up to a satisfactory level. And then we continue our run through the dungeon. Got a treasure chest over here, so hopefully something that we can use in it. A hunter's knife, which is a light blade. 9 to 15 damage. We can either throw that onto our duelist or we can throw that onto our rogue. One or the other. I think the rogue already has it though. I recognize the graphic. So yeah, that's a long knife. So the hunter's knife is not quite as good as the long knife. What is our duelist using right now? Because I know he likes knives in his offhand. He's using an infantry dagger, which is still better. Okay, well, then again, it's vendor fodder. I'm not going to worry about it. It kind of hurts my feelings when you call me vendor fodder. I feel like I would be useful to more inexperienced adventurers. Just because you found me like in the middle of your quest doesn't mean that I'm useless. You don't define my use. I think that I've got lots of worth. Well, that's called self-worth, dagger. That is called self-worth and has no imprint on how I view you. Let's go back over here and see maybe if we can find a few more Skaven. I mean, we're just about at the end of the episode, so realistically, I should probably power down here a little bit in the interest of keeping this from running too long. I mean, the things about this game that I do like is I really like the presentation once you're in the game. I do feel like a lot of the art assets from the UI and whatnot could be upgraded. Like when you first come into the game, like the title screen and the character selection, I realize it's a limited part of the game, but it's not going to make a good first impression with anybody that cares about aesthetics. But once you're in the game, it's all got a very nice kind of board game feel to it. It reminds me maybe of a little bit of Descent, like I said. That's kind of what all these tile pieces feel like to me. It feels like I'm playing Descent, albeit by myself, which is a little bit sad. But I'm not going to let it get me down. The sound effects all appear to be pretty much on par. The music is cool. I like the music. I do like the pricing scheme that they've chosen. I know I think I've seen a lot of people complaining about the price on the Steam forums because they don't necessarily understand that people that buy it for the mobile phone, don't get all the DLC and all the characters for free, so they've got to kind of piecemeal it all out. Whereas if you buy it for the PC at the $11.99 cost, you're getting all the characters, all the DLC, and everything that will ever be developed for the game for free. And so while I agree the price might look daunting to some people for like the art assets that you're getting and things like that, I think that with my experience with the Trese Brothers, in between buying their games for my droid and also buying their games now on Steam, although they gifted this one to me just to see if I would like it or not, and that's how I get a lot of my games nowadays, is developers just send them to me. And so in checking it out, I do feel like this is a pretty cool game to play if you're into top-down tactical RPGs and you haven't played a turn-based one in a while like Avernum or Avedon, and you've been looking for something low-budget that has a lot of heart and has a lot of spirit. I think the game's pretty cool. I mean, I'll probably end up playing a pretty good chunk of the game and trying to figure out, you know, what characters I like best, what ones I don't like. It feels like a game that I'll probably end up playing here and there throughout it. It does have a lot of combat. That's one thing that I will say about it, is that a lot of games punctuate the combat a little better than this game does. This game, it seems like you bounce straight from combat to combat over and over and over again, and it feels like I've accomplished very, very little for the amount of time that I've been playing the game. So I've had it running now for maybe 3.5 hours. Would say that's about how much time I've had with the game. And I've still yet to hit like a rest point where you actually get to level up, even though I've leveled up multiple times now. Maybe I missed it in the past in the tunnel somewhere, but I've yet to level up or do any of that sort of thing. Even after a while, it just seems like there's one combat after the next. And so if you have a problem with fighting a lot of battles, so I think that people that have played a lot of JRPGs and a lot of games like Vandal Hearts and things like that won't have a problem with the back-to-back-to-back-to-back combats, but some people like a little more fluff and filler in the middle. Just be aware that you're going to be doing a lot of fighting in this game. Every dungeon is going to be comprised of dozens of fights, each kind of segmented out like this one right here, and as you make your way through the game, that's just the way that it is. I probably shouldn't have healed because now he's going to get archered to death. Well, damn. I suppose I will break the episode off right here. So this is Weekly Indie Newcomer. My name is Splattercat. If you don't know what Weekly Indie Newcomer is, it's the series in which I play a random indie game or an indie game that's been sent to me by a developer that has particularly jumped out at me over the course of the last week, or it's just one that I've been spending a little bit of time with just to give it a little bit more exposure here on the YouTubes. So if you like the series, remember, it'll be back every single Friday, so check in. Even if you don't like LPs, which is what I primarily do, I do these every week or so where I just kind of play a random low-budget indie game. So take care out there, everybody. Hi-do, and I will see you next Friday with Weekly Indie Newcomer.